In 3, 2, 1. This is Acting Mastery. I'm Ben Matthews. Today, I am honored to share one of the most transformative conversations I've ever had with the legendary acting coach, Gerry Grennell. I first became aware of Gerry watching the documentary I Am Heath Ledger and learned about the extraordinary collaboration between Gerry and Heath on some of Heath's most iconic roles, including his unforgettable portrayal as the Joker in Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. Later, I noted his name again when Natalie Portman shared one of Gerry's insights in her masterclass on acting. Then I started hearing his name quietly mentioned by friends working as actors at the highest levels of the industry, all of them speaking about how his approach to the craft had changed their lives. Gerry Grennell's client list reads like a who's who of Hollywood royalty. Heath Ledger, Meryl Streep, Marlon Brando, Johnny Depp, Tom Cruise, Natalie Portman, Matt Damon, Pedro Pascal, Bruce Willis, Oscar Isaac, Joel Edgerton, Sean Penn, Anne Hathaway, and many more. Trained at the prestigious Central School of Speech and Drama in London, Gerry began as an expert in Alexander technique and in voice, and he went on to co-found the Bow Street Academy in Dublin, Ireland. He has quietly become one of the most in-demand acting coaches in the world, and yet I still find that few know his name. What was initially meant to be a 90-minute interview turned into a 2-hour and 40-minute journey of philosophies and profound insights, particularly on the subject of ownership and authorship for actors. I didn't ask a second question, as you'll hear, for nearly 20 minutes because I couldn't bear to interrupt Gerry as he shared his wisdom and waxed lyrical on topics that I haven't stopped thinking about since. This interview was so full of aha moments that I know it will resonate with you just as deeply as it did with me. So let's dive into this extraordinary episode of the Acting Mastery podcast with Gerry Grennell. Gerry Grennell, welcome to Acting Mastery.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here.
It's a true honor for us to have you, and I've certainly been a fan of yours for a number of years, ever since I saw the documentary I Am Heath Ledger, which was when I think you really came into my awareness, and then have some friends who have subsequently worked with you and have nothing but incredible things to say. And so we're absolutely thrilled to have the opportunity to talk to you today.
Well, that's really great to hear. I'm delighted to be here anyway. Thank you for asking me to come on. I'm very excited to talk about what we both love.
When did your love affair with acting begin?
Well, actually, we can all talk about what is acting and all of that kind of stuff. But I suppose acting proper, back in the 80s, I was a member of an experimental theatre company here in Dublin, Wet Paint Theatre Company, and we did a lot of experimental stuff. So I got involved. I was before that I trained musician. I'm a trained musician as well. So I spent a lot of time writing music for theatre productions, and I did some stuff for the Abbey Theatre, and I did some stuff for other and for our experimental theatre. So it was something that I was doing. Also, when I was a kid, my uncle ran the Gaiety Theatre in Dublin, so I had experience of backstage and whatnot, all that kind of life, that world, which is magical. It's not your normal office job, you know. But I was exposed to the performance medium at a very early age, but and through music as well. Obviously, I did a lot of concerts and whatnot. and studied performance psychology when I studied music, and those very early days, performance psychology. Much less than it is today. It's a very big study, and it also finds its has found its way into sport arena. You know that the performance psychology is
Mm.
big in sport, but I was fascinated by how, and having interacted with audiences as well, I'm fascinated um, by the relationship that we have with audiences, or how we perceive the business performance. So, um, in the theater company, I wrote a lot of experimental stuff, and we did a lot of workshops as well. Because with experimental theater, you're always looking for, I suppose, the seed of the material you're trying to develop, and so on. And after that, I then discovered Alexander technique, and
Mm.
fell in love with that, and then moved to London and trained in the Constructive Teaching Centre in London. And that was there was a lot of emphasis on theatre, obviously because Alexander, he was an actor, and that's how he discovered his technique, Alexander technique,
Mm.
um, through his performance, and he lost his voice. So voice is a big part of the Alexander, or at least the angle that I came to the Alexander technique from. And after that, then I just kept going, and I ended up in Central School of Speech and Drama in London after that. And while there, I got my first movie, which was, which is uh, for a student to get a first movie is like, oh yeah, this I'll have that. Thank you very much. I would moved on from there, and as happens, one job leads to the next, and I found myself doing more accent work than acting work. Um, but my interest in voice was, um, I mean, I carried it because that is our expression. There's only two elements to film, and that's the
Mm.
visual and the audio.
Mm.
So it's either one or the other that we pay a lot of attention to. So, um, and I was also very interested in how the voice changes, or how we speak, and how we express ourselves and our true self. That there is a an aspect of adopting different persona to when we're in certain environments, and in in that situation, it's really interesting to when you observe yourself. You
Mm.
observe yourself, and what persona am I presenting now? Who am I in this particular garb? So that was really interesting, and then so on and so forth. And I moved on through different experiences, and developing my own. Um, I suppose it's out of curiosity than anything else. What is it that makes us do what we do? And having been on the stage, and in the recording sort of environment as well, and on camera and whatnot, I discovered really that there are certain aspects of performance that are ritualistic almost,
Mm.
not routine, but more ritual, more like what a ritual would be, rather than something that would be routine. Like I brush
Mm.
my teeth in the morning, brush my teeth before, after a meal, or whatever. That's a routine you might have, but a ritual um, brings with it a certain. Um, I suppose I would identify it as a spiritual element to it.
Mm.
Uh, and then the question about what is spiritual, and what is spirituality, and all that kind of stuff. And I think I don't know if I'm going off piece here, but I think it's about who you are. I mean, and the relationship you have with yourself. That is a spiritual thing.
Mm.
So in that sense, the idea of acting per se, um, began to I began to focus more on what it is that drives us to do this, motivates us to do it. What is it about acting that's and also, apart from that, tangentially, what is it about acting that other people think is pretending?
Mm.
You know, and then not discounting that observation. What is it about art that people think is an imitation of life? That, and you often heard that expression, art imitates life.
Mm.
And I was always really curious because it wasn't the full picture for me. I never really felt like, oh, well, damn, I'm an artist, and I don't think I'm imitating life.
Mm.
Really, maybe I'm imitating elements of life, but I'm not imitating life. So it's not really fair to just say that I imitate. This imitation is really, I suppose, it diminishes what we do in some respects. So, and then I wonder what is the element that I'm trying to bring to that observation that may perhaps complete the picture. Well, for
Mm.
me anyway, not necessarily for everybody else. And I began to realize, oh well, actually, imitation is a part of what we do, but it's only in the service of interpretation. So we're interpreting life more than we are imitating. We use imitation. Yes, we wear costume. Well, makeup. The makeup artist envisages a particular look that he or she um, uh, feels appropriate for their interpretation of the script of the character and so on. And we wear that. The hair is done, the costume is done, and blah blah blah. And even to the script is an imitation of life.
Mm.
But it's not just an imitation. The writer uses life and imitates their perspective or their opinion of life, their artistic opinion of life, and then sets about conjuring situations where one energy is pitted against another energy.
Mm.
And as the narrative unfolds, um, and the writer hones that, over and over until they come up with something they're satisfied with. And the imitation aspect of it, or the imitative aspect of it, gives the observer an environment that seems familiar. So you're given a familiar environment that we can all identify with, or at least elements of which we can identify with, and through that conjuring of a world that is, to all intents and purposes, imitative, then the writer can interpret their view of life.
Mm.
And it might not necessarily even have anything to do with the scenario that they've painted, the picture they painted. And then the writer hands that over to the actor, and then the actor takes it, and then when the actor is reading it, their vision of what they're reading is personal.
Mm-hmm.
It's you use your experience of life to conjure in your imagination a world that is, to all intents and purposes, um, uh, free of the writer.
Mm.
I mean, the writer guides you, but the actor invents their own reality, brings their own opinion, and that opinion is essentially an interpretation of life.
Mm-hmm.
And in so doing, we set the groundwork, or at least that we put the foundations down after the first reading, essentially, because that's what you've imagined.
Mm.
Um, so in essence, that the idea of performance became something a lot more personal. It became so. I was led to realize, oh damn, it's not actually, I'm not. Yes, there is imitation. There is, and in fact, there is fakery too. If you're good at faking it, then don't knock it. Just fake it, so sometimes you're going to need it, that's that's fine. And it's also exciting as well. If you accept that every now and again, if not more often than not, I don't know, depending on the situation, your environment, you may find yourself relying on faking, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I definitely advise not to dismiss that. That's definitely very useful. But having said all that, the what really interested me and still does is what it is about the individual. What is it about the individual relationship with this story that makes it interesting? And what is it about the observer's experience that makes it interesting? Because that's crucially important, of course. And from an economic point of view, you're not going to get it. If you can't bring that world or breathe life into that world, then you're not going to be in a position to do it very often.
Right.
Because the people who sign the checks, they want a return. So it's like, you've got this the commercial side of it, and then the artistic side of it. And because the commercial side of it is big and very, very self-important, very dynamic in the sense that when money comes into the question, it dominates, for a reason, I suppose. It's a little bit like it's a little bit like that they out on the savannah. When when dinner is up, dinner's up. You don't muck around with that. So in essence, that the financial end of what we do tends to take precedence over what we do, and sort of impinges on the work as an artist. So then I've got to figure out, and for myself, not necessarily only for other people, but I've got to figure out, well, how would I navigate that? Because I can't dismiss that reality. That is a reality. You can't go, oh, I'm an artist, and so there are aspects to what we do that have to be taken into account as well. And we're very often it isn't discussed. We don't talk about it that much. But so we have to talk about that. Well, all right. So our relationship with the commercial side of it. Okay, let's talk about that. Let's not pretend that it's not there.
Right.
It is real, and it means a lot. And you know what? If you want to ply your trade, you need to know what's going on, and what sells and what doesn't sell. But even that is fascinating, because what I believe really does sell is the ownership you have over the material you're working on. And what does that mean? And how does ownership manifest itself? Or how do you manifest ownership? And what does that do to the material that's pre-constructed? After all, the script is pre-constructed. It's not like I've got to think of what to say. It's already there.
Right.
So we're dealing with a very different thing. So and then I'm fascinated. When I was a kid, I was into the visual arts, and and then music, then drama, isn't it? Like most of us, we we dabble in all different media. However, what interested me was then, oh, I'm actually talking about what pretty much every artist, be they visual, be it movement, be it writing, but whatever your art form or your discipline is, the motivation is the same.
Right.
So the actor is first and foremost an artist, and then they found themselves attracted to this particular discipline, but they could just as easily have been attracted to the visuals, or to dance, or to poetry, or to writing, to lots of different things, to music. Or that was really a nice kind of realization for me, because I realized, okay, so we're not actors as much as we're artists.
I
And
love
that's
that.
an interesting thing to bring to the mix, because we're not tied to a specific discipline necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives us the freedom. I mean, you write, you direct, you teach, you act, there are lots of different, and we would call them strings to your bow. But I think it's not so much that as it's there are different avenues that you investigate, um, and you go down those one particular avenue because it interests you. You're curious
Mm-hmm.
about it. You want to see, well, I want to stretch my talents. I want to see, have I got what it takes to upturn rocks in this particular beach,
Right.
see what lies there. You don't quite know what it is that you're doing, but the curiosity aspect of it motivates us forward, I think. Um,
Mm.
what is the curiosity? Well, it's not. I'm curious and love literature. Um, right from childhood, I was a very good fortune of having an amazing English teacher when I was a kid. Didn't care about the syllabus at all. Was just fascinated by literature, and
Yeah.
that was more interesting for me than even the content. And on reflection, what inspired me was him, not necessarily the writing, but
Right.
his love of the writing and
Yes.
his relation with the writing. See, so
Mm.
it's fascinating. And so, what is it then that makes me attracted to one actor as opposed to another, or what is it makes me that moves me about a performance? And honestly, I think it comes from even that observation. It's not the material as much as the relationship we have with the material. And
Mm.
how do I? And then, of course, the question comes. I mean, we could talk all day about this. Then, what the next question is? What is it about the performance that sets one performance against another one? Not so much against, but that differentiates one from another. And then it comes down to the person.
Mm-hmm.
It's that, it's like I sometimes tell this great story about Joshua Heifetz, sort of a violinist. When I studied music, one of my teachers told me this story, and I never forgot it. And he was doing a concert, and he was playing a Stradivarius. And after the concert, in the dressing room, when he was receiving those, and in the fur coats, and the big bank checkbook or whatever. Uh, um, One woman said, "Oh my God, Mr. Heifetz, your violin it's so beautiful, it's wonderful. I love that violin. It's so beautiful." And he goes over to the violin case, opens it, and puts his ear down to it. And says, "I hear nothing," which is great. It's the perfect description of what the artist actually does. Yeah, the violin is a great instrument, a beautiful instrument, and there are many, many wonderful, wonderful artists making musical instruments.
Right.
But that's not, what you do with it is
Yeah.
what not, you
It's
know.
not the tool, it's the artist.
It's completely the artist. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, and that's complicated for
Mm.
us. Right? How the hell do you navigate that?
I mean, there is so much that you've just said to unpack, but the idea of it being about ownership for the actor, that it's the actor who really takes ownership of not just the material, but their relationship to the material and their take on the material that sets them apart. Where do you begin when you're working with an actor or a client on doing exactly that, on really finding their way into taking full ownership of a role?
Well, of course, it depends on how long I know that actor.
Right. Yeah.
Because obviously the shorthand,
Of course.
certain things are counted. But let's say we start from scratch.
Hmm.
Well, at the school, for example, in Bow Street, that
Yeah.
uh, we the first thing we talk about is ownership, and what is that, of what what does ownership imply? What the heck is, what is that?
Yeah.
Uh, and
how do you define it?
Yeah, I mean, the definition of ownership. Oh, well, ownership. Well, so we go back to, I do this little presentation thing that we call. Well, I titled it "Act Like a Child." So we go through the steps, and it brings in things like performance anxiety and whatnot. Well, perhaps we might do that at a later stage. Just run it past you and you see what you think of it.
Would love that.
It's an introduction to what ownership might actually look like. Because ownership looks different for different people.
Right.
So it's not like ownership is like, and also it's like here am I talking as though I've got the knowledge. You know what I mean? It's like it's silly,
Yeah.
Or technique. What is technique? So like
that's right.
Your technique is not my technique.
Yeah.
So really, what we're trying to do as not as teachers, but as helpers, or
yeah.
it's really, it's not you're not teaching.
No.
How do you teach?
Yeah.
But you're guiding in some ways, or at least offering insight in a way that is as open and humble as possible, so that you're not trying to tell a person how to think or what to do, or judging, analyzing, right, and blah blah blah. But what we're really trying to do is to help people to develop their own technique. Because that is where technique, you make your own technique, and that's it.
That's right.
There are certain things, there are certain approaches, like any artist, that you learn that help you to expand your capacity. But that's about as much as you can do, that's an education. But from acquiring or helping someone to build and develop their own technique, that's, I think, more interesting. So what I start off with my students at the school, for example, I say, well, first thing you've got to know is that I talk a lot of bullshit. Your job is to extract that and find anything that's of any value to you.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair enough. Because sometimes you're chatting away with somebody and you're listening to them, but you're only hearing what you can process, or you're only hearing what you understand of the conversation, and some of the stuff just goes straight over your head.
Completely.
The stuff that goes over your head isn't important anyway.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter to you, and the what you construct of the story as it's unfolding is entirely yours. So essentially, you're not interested in the stuff you don't understand. You're only interested in the stuff you do. I spout a lot of bullshit, and then your job is to make sure that some of it's of value. Otherwise, ask for your money back. You might not get it back, but
you can always ask.
You may have to grapple. Having said that, but it does. That also draws the students' attention in the school anyhow. Draws their attention to the reality that in teaching, it's really interesting. In teaching, the dynamic, the student-teacher dynamic. Well, the student, I'm the idiot, and you're the genius. What a stupid bloody thing. I mean, it's like, that's ridiculous. I'm equally as stupid as you.
Yeah, figuring it out together.
Yeah, we're trying to figure this out together. Exactly. Yeah. I think that's more honest, I think, because I don't know you. I all I know of you is what I conjure in my imagination. My impression of you, and where does that reside? It resides in here, not there. I'm not looking at you. I'm actually interacting with my impression of you.
Yeah.
And so how am I going to say, with confidence, I know you?
Yeah.
Nonsense. I mean, and that observation alone, we can park that for a second, but we could come to it after. after Act Like a Child, and we realize, oh damn, there's a lot in that. I don't know you. I'm interacting with my impression of you. So effectively, I'm interacting with myself, in a very strange way.
Yeah.
I'm talking to myself.
Right. Well, it's that idea, that it's kind of like what Anais Nin says, we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. It's all through our own filter.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. I mean, you could get into quantum physics and say, well, we make the world real.
Right.
Consciousness makes the world real. And then, of course, I mean, you can go off on tangents here. That then you can go into the world, which is fascinating. The quantum studies of what they're coming up with, these extraordinary scientists. And what is consciousness? I recommend checking out Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff. They're extraordinary thinkers. Those two guys have got together and they've come up with a pretty reasonable theory of consciousness. It's pretty interesting.
Wow.
And that is a fascinating subject in itself. But and then there are other thinkers, and panpsychism, for example, the idea that consciousness is everywhere, that the universe essentially is conscious.
Right.
But the levels of consciousness are, the gradations of consciousness. My fic has, its makeup allows an element of consciousness that is at that level.
Right. Yeah.
And then the monkey is at this level, and it's debatable whether if this is the monkey that I'm here or here. I'm not sure.
That's right.
But given that that we're close, it's a closely fought thing. But self-consciousness and consciousness. Ooh, now that's an interesting subject, because we identify it. And P.S., the language that we're using to describe the thoughts that we have is couched in history. It's like,
right.
I'm not the only person who speaks words, nor are you. And we can trace it back, and then we can even see how language changed, and how people used language, how we're using language now. And then, in a post-truth world, damn, because what is language now used for? Language is used to manipulate people's impressions of the world.
Absolutely.
By those, and has it ever been any other way? But, I like to say in a post-truth world, the only reliable truth is self-truth. That's all you've got. Self-truth. Nothing else. So it behoves us to investigate the self.
Right.
Who am I? My relationship with myself, and my
thyself.
relationship with myself will dictate my relationship with others. Absolutely. No question about that.
Yeah.
So Act Like a Child. So we go through Act Like a Child, and what is fascinating, that back to ownership again. When the baby is born, the world exists because the baby does. When the carer or mother or parent comes into the room and picks the baby up, they are manifest literally by the baby. In the baby's world, that you exist because I do. Everybody thinks what I am thinking.
Yes.
And that's an interesting. I'm not suggesting that we go necessarily down that road, but if we do look closely at that, I mean, the solipsism is another conversation, but suffice to say that that's not what I'm suggesting. At least, the condition of solipsism is something that you can't help. That's a condition.
Right.
The observation itself allows us to ask questions about how we perceive the world. It's, oh, well, damn, if you think about your eyes are lenses.
That's it.
We don't speak out. We absorb. It's going in. So the world is in here. Well, how does that work? Well, pretend you're a camera. Pretend you're a camera, and your eyes are the lens, and the information is going in. Where's the information? What are you looking at? It's in here.
It's being created back
and that's
here.
all truly. Yes. So if you walk around and it changes how you feel, it changes. And now this is interesting as well because the conversation about feeling comes up. Now, what is feeling? Well, if I touch my glasses here, I know I know the feeling. There's a temperature. There's a smoothness to them. That's feeling. So I'm feeling something with my hands, or the texture of the jacket, or it's similar but not the same. And all of that information is, all that information is available. If I shake your hand, I can feel the pressure in your hand. I can feel the humidity. Is your hand dry? Is your skin dry? But amazing stuff. Pressure. And even if we can give it time, and certainly in Alexander technique, there's a lot of information communicated through touch.
Right.
And then we say, well, that's feeling. I feel cold. I feel sad. I feel an emotion. Whoa, hold on a second. How could I feel an emotion? Well, I tell you how, because the chemistry in your body is fluctuating all the time. Our neurology is so complex and built in such a way as to inform us of how that chemistry is changing. And when I feel sad, I'm actually feeling something. I'm feeling the chemical change.
Right.
I feel happy. I feel a chemical change.
And then we name that sensation.
And then we give it a name. And the funny thing is, give it, sad. Well, I'm sad that it's raining. I'm sad that that it's kind of foggy or it's winter. And I'm sad that I'm happy for you, but I'm sad for me that you're in your summer.
Yeah. Right.
I'm sad that I don't like Chinese food. But I have been to China and the food is pretty good there, so it must be something to do. You know what I mean? It's all the word sad. So many different kinds of sads.
Right. Yeah.
And then let's say, and that is also really important in performance, to imagine, that the mistake of going into a performance thinking that this is the emotion. Emotions are changing all the time.
Right.
So if emotions are changing all the time, why try to fix the emotion? Take one is the examining what, of course you do your blocking and your rehearsal first. And then you figure out, and then the director will figure out the mise en scène and all that, all the elements that go to make up the image in the frame and so on. And then that interpretation. It's not our job to figure too much about that. Of course, the more experience we have, the more we realize, oh, okay, right. I know my position here in relation to the camera. I can use that. And that's your job too, of course. But we have to prioritize what we look at, what we work on, and that is dictated by level of experience and so on. In the performance, then when you go to take one, that's a rehearsal. It's a rehearsal for take two, and take two is a rehearsal for take three, and so on and so forth. And we know through theater that rehearsal, you rehearse today, tomorrow we meet up, we rehearse again, blah, 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 blah. Director picks a couple of scenes here and there, and you work through that. And let's go, we won't use that. We won't use that. Let's put this in. Let's move this here, and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Then you figure out placement on the stage and all. And then you got weeks of doing this. In film, it's a completely different ball game in terms of the rehearsal and what is rehearsal. What does rehearsal mean? And because rehearsal, if we're lucky, we'll have time with the director and our scene partners prior to the shoot. Sometimes you might not, depending on the pecking order. But given that you arrive on set and you rehearse and you block and you do all of that stuff, what are you trying to do? Now, what are you doing? You're trying to figure out my deal. What's going on for me? How do I feel? And we have to learn how to do that. Because you can't just walk up, because most of the time you've got to go, well, I'm feeling pretty damn nervous. Well, that's nothing to do with the scene.
No.
You see, that's to do with the environment you're perceiving,
Right.
the construction that you've actually brought to the situation. So now we have to go, well, what is performance and what is prep? There are two very, very different activities. No, prep is this, prep starts over here and kind of finishes somewhere over here. And then somewhere in here is performance.
Right. Right.
And very often we go, I'm going to take all of this and I'm going to pack it into this. And if I can't bring this, I'm really pissed at myself.
Yeah. If I can't show all of my homework in that one performance, yeah.
Absolutely. So we have to then talk about, well, how do we deal with that? Well, there's something I call readiness potential. So in prep, you're building your potential, you're building the readiness potential. And in order to understand that, we have to understand, well, we've got executive function and we've got associative function. Pretty basic stuff. The executive function is guiding us to do all the prep, figure out this, to figure out what might the audience like, what might I like, what might this mean, what might that mean, what might director want, what did the writer want, what blah, 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 all of that sort of stuff. Okay, how much of me am I actually bringing to this? Oh, no. All of that's going in. That's all going in using executive function to put that in there. But when it comes to that little moment over here, you can't ask for that to be displayed. What you have to do is to learn to trust the readiness potential, so that when it comes to the situation that affects you as you understand it, the appropriate responses will be offered through association.
Right.
The associative function will then deliver multiple, perhaps, possibilities. The better you are at fishing for that, the more you'll be able to pick and choose. But suffice to say that it all comes from the readiness potential, which is subconscious in many respects, stimulated by the events that are happening right now. It's important that we identify, am I feeling something that has to do with the scene, or am I feeling something that has to do with the environment of shooting a scene? And am I nervous? Am I afraid that I might lose my job? Am I afraid, am I trying to please the director? Am I trying to please the producer? All that stuff.
Right.
So that really, and ownership is crucially important.
Yes. Yes, it is.
How do you use it? Really, really, really important to understand what ownership is. So beginning with, you were a baby one time, and at a certain point in your life, I know when I brought my son, our firstborn, to his first birthday party, we bought a present for Heath's daughter. We brought my son to the birthday party, and we bought her a little toy. Well, my son freaked out because I didn't get him a toy.
Right.
A toy. What's going on here? But for a child, what that really means is that no, the world thinks what I'm thinking. I have to have that's my toy. It's not her toy.
Right.
I know he was pacified, like most kids. You figure it out, So but he had a little bit of a tantrum, as do all children.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. The reason they do that, and that's just my interpretation of it, is because in his world, everything exists because he does. And then in the other child's world, everything exists because she does. So when they come together, you've got conflict, because the reality is the world in this mind is not the world in that mind, but we don't understand that.
Right.
So then we're dealing with survival. Because this kid is actually presenting the possibility that, oh my gosh, she's not thinking what I think. This is not good.
Yeah. Something's wrong.
So, this happens. It's all the world sort of collapses. Oh, my little Johnny never thought of this. Oh, my little Sarah never thought of this. Oh my gosh, she never behaved like this before. Yeah, right. Yeah, but it's just the first time I've been to a party. So, my solution was to buy, next party I went to was I bought my son the same toy. So that's solved the problem.
Very good
That's
idea.
solved it. Yeah. So once you realize you're not going to win this,
No.
what is ownership and how do you experience it? To use that experience of the party, that's the first sort of encounter a child has. Well, one of the first encounters a child has with acquisition. This is my cup because I bought it. That's acquisition. That's not ownership as we understand it.
Right.
This is your cup as much as it's mine, because one day it'll actually be clay again, and so will I.
That's right.
So it's not like I own anything. It's a more advanced cave I live in. No, that's about it.
Yeah.
So that to know that there's a difference between the ownership we're talking about and the ownership that people understand from the meaning of the word. It's not acquisition. It's not acquisitive. It's again like consciousness of panpsychism in a sense, if you're going to use that analogy. It is everywhere. And and we are as much a part of it as it is a part of us. Before we talk about how the adult can actually investigate ownership, the child, we have to understand how we did interact with pure ownership. Everything happened because we existed. And then as you get older, you learn from going to school, you learn from going to preschool. I use that one also in Act Like a Child. The teacher, and this is where performance anxiety starts to come in. The teacher, oh, Gerry, that's a beautiful drawing. Very, very good. It is a gold star. Oh, there you go. Oh, Ben, that's a very good drawing. There's a silver star. Star's a star. That's whatever. I go home. Mom and Dad goes, "Oh, baby boy, isn't he wonderful? Artist, a gold star. There's a cookie with chocolate on too."
Oh.
And you're going, "Damn, this is good. I like this game. I'm going to go back tomorrow and get another one of those stars." So you go back tomorrow. Ben gets the gold star and I get the silver star. I don't mind. It's a star. So I go back the next day, and Mom and Dad say, "Oh, you're the best. Well, you're doing really well there. Here, another cookie." And there's no chocolate on it. Okay, never mind. I'll go back and I get another star. Next day, I don't get a star. Ben goes off with a gold star and a silver star, or his mate gets a silver star, and I'm pissed because I know there's something up here. I go back and I say, "Oh, don't you worry, Gerry. You are our favorite child. You're the best in the world. As far as we're concerned, you're a genius." No cookie. What about the cookie? So now I've got it's a simplified description of how we learn, and then you go on. You go to school and you learn a 5 out of 5. So you get 5 out of 5. Great. So that's typical. Your Friday test. You got 5 out of 5. Oh, so I've got 5 fingers, so that's a complete hand. But you've got 5 possibilities of failure.
Right.
And only one of success. So already, oh, damn, I don't have a complete hand. Oh, shit. And then you go up a grade. Oh, I'm a big boy now. Out of 10. Oh, now I've got 10 possibilities of failure and only one of success.
Right.
And then you go on up and it's 100 out of 100. We're getting kind of abstract now. We're leaving the body. 100%. Whoa. This is like really, really big thinking. But that's 100 possibilities. And then it goes algebraic. The fuckers. They moved the algebraic. What's going on here? Right now it's A, B, C, D, E, F, F. Failure. But nothing else. So, and now you're striving for an A. And what do they do? A plus. A plus. You don't have a chance.
Yeah.
By that stage, you're now doing the measuring.
Right.
By that stage, you're now saying, "I'm not good enough." And at that point, you're realizing that you no longer own Hegel's, master-servant dialectic.
Right.
which I wouldn't recommend you read it. It's very, very complicated and long, drawn out. But essentially, we are now the servant. We are now serving society.
Right.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. And we're applauded for serving society. No, society serves me. I mean, in the real animal world, the only reason I do things is to survive.
Right.
I'm not pretending that I'm not doing it. If I don't pretend I'm not doing it to survive, then I'm being honest with myself. And I'll be honest with other people. It doesn't mean that I that I'm going to use other people. It just means that the relationship is an honest one. Let me go back to the child again, to that 100 possibilities of failure and only one of success. Damn, I go on to set and I'm carrying 100 possibilities of failure and only one of success.
Right.
I mean, what bullshit is that?
Yeah.
And we're filled with that.
Or every time an actor auditions, and they're 1 in 1,000 or 2,000.
And on that very subject, auditions. You know, you go into the audition room, or you go into the audition waiting room, you know, and there are 5, 6 other people there, and they all look like you. But I mean, I'm joking, and you're kind of bantering and chatting away, but you're really doing it to sort of ease the pain. The mistake we make is we're going in to try and please the casting agent or the director if the director's there, or whoever it is that's there in the audition. But in actual fact, they picked the scenes. They sent you the damn scenes. They know what you're going to say. And, you know, 5 people before you said the same darn words, right? And then the reader read the same darn line. So they're not looking for, can you remember the dialogue? That's a given.
Right.
But what are they looking for? They're looking for you. That's what they want. They want to see how much of you can you bring to the...
And your artistry.
That is a very big part of your artistry. I mean, if you can't show you, you're not going to show your artistry, you know, because that's where the artistry is. You are the instrument. You are, you know, if you were a musician, you'd know your instrument inside out. You are your instrument. You better know yourself pretty well, you know, or at least instigate the search, instigate the self curiosity. What's my relationship with the world? What is it? What am I doing here? Who am I? How do I view myself? I mean, we do mirror work at the school, you know, which is like some schools that say, "Oh my God, don't look in the mirror." Don't look in the mirror.
Yeah.
Look at yourself.
Right.
You know, who are you? And know yourself. Know who that person is. Because guess what? There is no one else on the planet in the history of the human race that ever saw this. You're the only one. You know, check yourself out in the mirror. There are 2 ways you can see yourself in the mirror. And the first one is you can, no bogeys. Okay, right. Hair's okay. No, right. Oh, sure. Okay. I'm looking all right. Okay. You're checking your impression of yourself. But you're the only person ever in the history of the human race who will ever look in the mirror and see you. It's mind-blowing. You want the audience to see you do that. And that's fascinating. Why? Because I don't want to be seen as an observer. I'm voyeuristic. I don't want you to recognize me. Whereas if you're seeing your impression of you, that's all you're doing. You're joining the audience and you're looking at yourself. Now what you do, now what's that doing to the performance? It's self-conscious. There's a difference between self-consciousness and self-awareness. A massive difference.
Absolutely.
See yourself. You're aware of yourself.
I've heard a sort of a definition of the difference between self-awareness and self-consciousness, which is that self-consciousness is self-awareness with judgment added in. That as soon as you start to judge what you see, particularly with the perspective of really how other people, your idea of how other people are perceiving you, we become self-conscious and stop being self-aware.
Yes, that's the difference between a first-person perspective and a third-person perspective. Which, if we go back to the school situation where you learn to measure yourself, what that's doing is it extracting the third person perspective. So now you're seeing yourself as outside. So you're looking at yourself from your avatar's position. So how do you get to the first person self? Well, it's a pretty good possibility there. If you were to look into your eyes right now, look into your eyes and see you. Just look at you, and you'll notice that it's like a push and a pull. You know, am I seeing myself, or am I seeing myself seeing myself?
Right.
No. See yourself. Literally connect with you. Your eyes change, your skin changes, the muscle tone in your body changes. Everything is beautiful. Why is it beautiful? It's beautiful because however short the time that it is when you make that connection, I suddenly see somebody going, it's okay. It's okay to be me. I'm okay with me. I recognize who I am, and I'm okay with that.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and that's all you need. You don't need it all the way through a movie. You don't need it all the way through a performance. If you have it here and there, great. First person perspective, phenomenal.
One of the things that really struck me in the documentary that I mentioned at the beginning, I Am Heath Ledger, and obviously Heath was a dear friend of yours and collaborator. One of the things that really struck me was just how much time he spent with a camera in his hand, constantly filming himself, watching himself, examining himself. And, you know, Ang Lee talks about in the film how he normally wouldn't let actors come around to the monitor to watch playback, but Heath would just walk around and watch playback. Ang Lee wouldn't normally allow them to, because, of course, actors start to get self-conscious and start to criticize their performance. But every time Heath watched his performance, his playback, his performance only got better. Could you maybe speak to that, given that I know you were working with Heath at the time, and it seems like this is exactly what you're sort of pointing at?
Oh, well, it is. It is essentially what it is. You know, back in those days, you know, you got contact sheets. You know, so you get a Manila envelope with that many contact sheets, and you know, and so many sort of thumbnail photos, and it was it was a chore to go through the ones that you pass and not pass. Okay, so I'd pick the photos that were passed, and there was only one prerequisite, and that was if I'm present. That's the only prerequisite. If I'm not present, kill it. If I'm present, it's fine, pass it.
When contact sheets, you mean like looking at headshots or photographs?
You had the still photographer on set, and part of his contract, and part of most leads, particularly, or most actors, is to pass those shots, because not all the shots are complementary.
Right.
But he didn't care how he looked in the sense of the aesthetic, or the he didn't care that he might have had a look that wasn't the way he wanted it to look. That he might perceive as being less
flattering.
No, he didn't care about that.
Right.
If I'm not present, don't pass it. So in other words, what did he mean by that? My interpretation of that would be, given the conversation we've just had, am I in my first person state? In a third person state, you're looking at yourself from outside, and that's why you would then consider that as being judgmental. Right? Because you're looking at yourself subjectively, and you're bringing all kinds of measure to it. And this is why it's so rewarding and so generous when you enter the first person state, momentarily, or as often as is possible, obviously. But you don't want to exhaust the machine. But for him, his relationship with himself was fascinating. I mean, beautiful, wonderful, wonderful person, and a really honest person, as I think we all are striving to be, I don't, I think, although psychosis has a great deal to play with some people's sort of view of the world, but given that, we were all born at least free of all of that, maybe someday we'll all find our way back to it. I don't know. That would be the dream. But for the artist, that's the art.
Right.
And it's, Zen Buddhism, without it necessarily being a religion, as a spiritual quest. What is that? What is that? And Zen is a really interesting sort of investigation as well. All of that stuff is it's not new.
No.
We didn't come up. Gerry didn't just go, oh my God, I got a great idea. No, it's not. This is like, how many people have been thinking this thousands of years?
Right.
A human investigation. But I do believe it's to do with the relationship we have with ourselves. And that dictates the relationship we have with others. Who are you? And your relationship with others will be dictated very much by that. And how you respond to it, how you build your relationship with your friends and family and all of that. But we're interested in that from the point of view of the artist as actor. How do we utilize that? How do we bring those observations to the work? Just as Heath did. And everybody admires his work, and rightly so.
Absolutely.
Right? He courted danger on set. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't afraid to let him be seen.
Beautifully
as opposed to let the character be seen.
Right.
It was him, as honest a portrayal of Heath as he could possibly achieve. And you know what? Australian actors. Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Pretty damn good. They do bring that quality to, as let's not suggest that only Australian actors who I admire and have had the great honor to work with many wonderful Australian actors. Really amazing. Countries like to say, oh, our very own,
yeah,
our very own, Sam Corlett, or your very,
yep. Yep.
All of that sort of thing, or Jacob Elordi, was a wonderful actor.
Absolutely.
Great actor. Abby Cornish, lovely actor. I mean, the list goes on. You get some great actors. What they do isn't anything to do with the country.
Right.
It's to do with the human condition.
Yeah.
And the relationship you have with the human condition. Being human, I guess I have the right to call myself human. A particular brand of human, I don't know. I don't know what that might look like, but essentially, yeah. And that's what we're presenting. Look, it's a complicated web of stuff. If you were to look in the mirror as an exercise on its own, look in the mirror and do a monologue, any old monologue, or the alphabet, who cares? And record it, and only say it when you connect to Ben, when you know it's Ben, and you're talking to Ben. I can guarantee you it would be impressive.
So that's what mirror work can offer, is that ability to see yourself
on the fly. You see, that's the thing, because we can then adjust, and you can learn from those observations when you're in, when you're out,
right.
And you can then you can build the muscle of going, whoop, back you come, and you also build an awareness of it's okay. Third person perspective, so what?
Yep, no big deal.
Oh, it's no big deal. Go, when you want to go back to first person, go back to first person.
Right.
When you're ready, that's fine. If you're on set and you're shooting a scene and it's a love scene and you're thinking of a sandwich, think of the damn sandwich. You know what I mean? Get on with thinking the sandwich. Don't reproach yourself, because that's what we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see you beating yourself up as opposed to enjoying a sandwich.
So how then do you like to work? I mean, obviously you said earlier it depends on the actor and how well you know them. Would you say that it's an inside out approach or an outside in approach when it comes to exploring a role or a character? Or is it both?
I'm approaching this on the basis, not necessarily on people that I've worked with per se,
Hmm.
although the same conversations, obviously
Yeah.
the same conversations. But if you're looking for a stepwise,
Hmm.
for example, what we do is two-hander. Pick a two-hander,
Mm-hmm.
and then the first thing that we say: do not pick a preferred character.
Mm-hmm.
Read the scene like you would a newspaper article
Mm-hmm.
or a novel, whatever. Just read the scene like any old way.
Mm.
The first thing you're going to find yourself, maybe some people will find themselves going, well, I prefer this character, I prefer that character, blah, 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 whatever it is. No, don't entertain that. If you can,
Mm-hmm.
read it once. Do not try to learn it all. Twice, 3 times, minimum 10 times, not learning it all. You do this separately, by the way. We separate the student out, or they're not really students. I mean, they're like amazing people that come to this. But any drama school, they're amazing people. There's the
Absolutely.
bravery. God, so brave. It's like,
100%.
oh, it's incredible to actually trust yourself, to trust the feeling that you have that there's something you want to express but don't know how to get it out. Try to get it out. Oh my God, where would we be without them?
Exactly.
We'd be FUCKED. For real. We'd be done for. And we
Yeah.
don't appreciate them as much as we really ought to. Those two artists separated, and their job is to read those that scene, come together, and then we say action. We haven't given them assigned them roles or anything. And it's really funny. Somebody starts speaking, and then the scene starts to happen. We call this concept work.
Hmm.
The reason we call it concept work is because when you read it without the agenda of learning it all, just out of curiosity, only reading it out of curiosity, you develop your own idea of what's going on. What you're doing is already you're creating your character.
Hmm.
But not only that, there are two people. And as you go, you're advocating for both.
Mm-hmm.
See, this is really interesting. So you're not necessarily judging your character, you're building a kind of an opinion of the scene.
Mm.
It's different. Now that's interesting because it's a bit like a footballer who doesn't play, just football in one space.
Mm.
A good footballer plays it on the pitch and knows every space on the pitch. They have a sense of where everybody is on the pitch.
Mm.
It's a very different, and you can see with the great sports people, they have that, and the great actors have that.
Mm.
So
Mm.
you're developing a concept, a cohesive sense of the dynamic of the piece
Right.
from your point.
From your point of
And it's
view.
fascinating from your point of view. And then we do it again and switch.
Wow.
And it's really interesting. Now, what happens there is that what you're doing is, without having even memorized the material,
Mm-hmm.
you remember it anyway. Why? Because it's not dissimilar to reading it. So when you read something, a scene 10 times, you're already anticipating what's going to be said.
That's right.
So you're already, what's going to be said.
Mm-hmm.
So the trick is then, okay, so out of that exercise, there are lots of, we can take that to different, more exercises. I call them tricks. I don't call them exercises, really.
Right.
Like this one. And the reason I call them tricks is because it's not about the exercise.
Yeah.
It's a trick. And that trick, the objective is to observe what happens as a consequence of employing this trick.
Right.
Trick loses its novelty.
Yep.
It wears off.
Yep.
So what are you experiencing as a result of doing this? That's more interesting. What are the feelings, so that you can develop your own internal map of how you navigated this. And what you extract from that will be the observations that will go to build part of your technique. Now, out of that, you then get to a fascinating point. And we do, and then I extend this on to other tricks that employ that exercise or that trick, so that we can go re-emphasize, or to push the idea forward. You're developing your own opinion. What's your opinion of this? And then we can talk about emotions and how do emotions play a role in this. And what are emotions? You're feeling emotions right now. It's just that they're not sort of big emotions, so you don't pay that much attention to them. But you're constantly emoting, constantly. So it's how are we going to manipulate that? So we learn how to do that, how to manipulate emotions.
Say more about manipulating. How do you manipulate emotions?
Well, I'm going to ask you, well, feel sad.
Yeah.
Right. Off you go, feel sad. Are you feeling sad? What kind of sad? Doesn't really matter too much. So long as you're beginning to feel, you're recognizing the chemical state of sadness. This is a difficult one. Love. Yeah, you're touching it. How about love of Ben? In spite of everything, Ben. In spite of everything. I fucking love me. And there you go. It's okay to be Ben.
Yeah.
Right? See what I mean? You're manipulating emotions. Why? Because you understand. You understand the feelings. You know what it is. Right? So to be able to do that is not a trick. It is a trick at the beginning. But what it becomes is something that is like a painter's palette. I know how to mix my colors.
Right. Exactly.
To understand how colors combine, for God's sake. Otherwise, we don't have a language.
That's it. Yeah, it reminds me of, I don't know if you're familiar with the technique PEM, the Camp emotional method. It sort of reminds me of that. The idea that, these sort of 6 primary emotional energies that can be blended into a whole array of different colors. But as you said, it's sort of another trick.
It's just a trick.
Yeah.
The trick is set aside. It's like a musician plays scales and arpeggios. That's a trick. Just to get, it's kind of a little boring sometimes. But if you're going to play something really complicated, you're going to play a complicated piece. There are certain moves, certain, like corners, like a racing driver. You don't sort of set off at 200 miles per hour around the track. You move up and down, because you're not going to go 200 around that bend. You're going to crease yourself. Same thing, a musician's not going to go around that bend, or they'll pull a muscle.
Right.
So you do it slowly. You take your time. You develop an exercise to deal with that particular difficulty, technical difficulty. So that's technical. But from the technical, you observe the liberation into another space that has nothing to do with technique. It's to do with facility, allowing yourself to navigate something that's requires a certain bravery, because like the dream of waking up, the dream of performance anxiety dream, like waking up at the bus stop in my underpants. That was a dream I used to have. I know it sounds silly, but I'm sure we all have similar dreams. But
yeah,
one of mine was wake up in my freaking underpants and going, damn, I didn't dress before.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was my thing, you know, my fear of walking on a stage, you know,
Completely.
in my equivalent, you know, not ready, or, you know, doing a gig and it's like, damn, I haven't looked at the script. Oh my God. Oh, shit. That was a nightmare. It all comes down to first person and third person, really.
Mm.
And what is first person? It's your relationship with yourself, and it's internal. Oh, you mentioned, you asked, is it outside in or inside out?
Mm-hmm.
And really, it is inside.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing: let's forget about the second one. It's just inside. It's not out,
Mm.
because we're not interested in what is seen.
Mm.
In the performance, now this is different. In performance, in the ritual, the performance ritual, we're not interested in what is seen. But during prep, yes, we could talk about all of that. But in the performance ritual, that's why I call it a ritual. We're not interested in what people see.
Mm.
We're interested in what I'm feeling, how I play this, how I manage this, how I navigate this. And it's in here.
It's in here.
We do a bunch of different exercises that separate us from the event and brings us closer and closer, hopefully. You know, it's up to the individual's experience of the tricks. All of the tricks are devised for the purposes of exposing a first-person experience of the self within the dynamic of a scene.
Mm-hmm. Do you have some other favorite tricks in terms of getting past that self-consciousness of, as you said, the experience of being on a set or being in an audition room?
If nothing else, right? If nothing else, imagine right now, and this isn't a trick, okay? But we have this, you know, it's funny. Everybody that goes through Bow Street knows this expression: breathe through your ass. Now, I challenge you, Ben, right now, to think about breathing through your ass. It takes considerable agility, but you can do it.
Okay.
I'm going to wait.
Okay, I'll give this a go.
You're landing. Interesting, isn't it?
Hmm. Hmm.
Everybody's got an ass.
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
And we can't breathe through our ass, but it's a fascinating exercise.
Hmm.
So what's the trick? What am I asking you to look at? The feeling that you had to actually go
In.
and work from interoception.
Hmm. Interoception.
Interoception, the perception from internal perception. It's not me looking in. Introspection is different. That's me looking at me. Interoception is me perceiving me.
Hmm. Wow.
Different. Now, when you were breathing through your ass, you were perceiving yourself, in spite of the fact that you can't breathe through your ass. But you were doing a lot of work on it, and your body was accommodating that.
Hmm. That's me playing my instrument. I remember hearing Natalie Portman talk about a tool or a trick that you gave her in terms of just, I guess, being on set and feeling self-conscious and just allowing everything that she can perceive to just be here, back in her optic nerve brain center where the image of the room is being created. That it, as you were saying earlier, it's not out here, it's back here with you. And that allowed her the ability to, I guess, begin to relax. Could you maybe speak to that a little bit?
And like, what an actor! Damn, she's so good. I mean,
Extraordinary.
good. Yeah, like artist, not so much actor. Actually, it's interesting. I would say her capacity to express artistically is pretty amazing. It's beautiful to watch. It's so generous, really generous. That works very nicely for her because she can see what I guess the psychological impact of the reality of how we operate,
Mm-hmm.
and that that empowers the actor.
Mm.
And again, empowering in a way of ownership. It allows us to go, yeah, if I am perceiving this, then this is my world. I am building this, and what I perceive of it is all I've got.
Right.
So why would I want to come out and try to do something that I can't do? Why would I be interested in I have an expression as don't listen to your scene partner, which is like, oh my God, heresy. Don't listen to your scene partner. Listen to what you're hearing. It's different.
Right.
So what you're hearing is what's here. What's being said is not necessarily what you hear.
Ain't that the truth?
And if you fuss around trying to figure out what's being said, you're wasting an awful lot of time, emotional time. You're chucking the cards into the air and hoping that you can actually read them all. It's not what?
Mm-hmm.
It's more about what's happening for me. That's
Right.
what matters. Just
Yeah.
especially in film, because the camera's on me now. And when the camera's on me, why would I care necessarily about what my scene partner is saying?
Mm.
Necessarily, and also that there are lots of benefits of doing the concept work as I've described, and then the subsequent exercises or tricks that we play, because sometimes you're on a green screen acting in front of a ping pong ball.
Amen.
So the ping pong ball is not going to tell you what they're thinking.
Mm-mm.
And the trainee AD reading the scene for you for timing ain't going to give you much.
Nope.
Oh, so you better know your scene partner, and you better be able to do both parts. I mean, that's an example of one of the benefits of working in that way. It doesn't necessarily mean that you've got to do in a full script, you've got to know everybody. But if you read it 20, 30, 40, 50 times, you have a pretty good chance that you will. You'll be able to advocate for everyone.
Well, Anthony Hopkins says he reads a script between 70 to 200 times. He knows that thing inside out. Yeah.
He doesn't want to be pretending anymore.
Mm.
That's mastery over the pre-constructed material. Roland Barthes asked, back in the 70s or 80s, 70s, are we serving the writer's intentions? And if we are, in my opinion, then we're not serving ours. And that's from an artist's point of view. The script is like the painter paints a tree, or no, let's say, a Starry Night, one of the most famous paintings, if not the most famous painting in the world.
Yeah.
Who incidentally Van Gogh didn't actually rate it that much.
Yep.
Go figure. I mean, if I went out tonight and saw the sky like that, I would definitely think I'd had the wrong mushrooms.
Or the right ones.
Something. Yeah, or the right ones. It's something going on with my stroganoff.
Right. Yeah.
However, every time you look at that painting, that's what you see. You see all of the elements that you would call a Starry Night.
Mm. Mm.
Why? Because it's an imitation of the night sky, interpreted in a way that is individual to Van Gogh. He had no allegiance to the night sky.
No.
The subject matter. It was simply using the subject matter for the purposes of interpreting life as he understood it, which is what the script is for us. It's the subject matter.
Oh, that's so good, Gerry. It's the subject matter.
Good.
It is so good. It's the specificity too it's why Van Gogh signs his name at the bottom, and it's instantly recognizably a Van Gogh because it is his interpretation of the subject matter. It's so specific to him. Just as, my version of Hamlet would be completely different to your version.
And hopefully.
Hopefully. That's right.
It would be tragic.
Right. And boring.
Absolutely. It was really interesting that you would say it in that way, because that brings us back to the audition situation.
Mm-hmm.
What makes it different? What makes it different? You do. And it's your interpretation of it that makes it different.
Right.
Your artistic opinion. Now there are all kinds of you know um, things that, not issues, but things that arise from that, and that is just the business of actually doing that. How do I do this? But and we can talk about neuroscience, we can talk about psychology, we can talk about philosophy, we can talk about spirituality, religion, you name it, whatever it is, and it's all to do with who am I and what my relationship is with me, all of that. But in the core of it, you get deeper and deeper into it, and then now you're standing there doing it. That's another ball game. The ideal is that somebody goes, okay, I'm going to put time into this. Is what I'm going to do. And it doesn't mean that if I get a gig that I don't do the gig. Of course, do the gig. It's like I'm investigating aspects of language. I speak English. No, maybe I'll dabble in Spanish, one of the Latin languages, and then suddenly I start realizing, oh my, the parallels between this word and this word. Oh, well, that's interesting. And what I do notice is when I speak Spanish, I'm different Gerry.
Right.
And that's absolutely true.
Yep.
But it takes a long time before I start dreaming in Spanish. Once I start dreaming in Spanish, I start to realize, oh, I now have developed who I am. I'm developing who I am in this reality. Not unlike character. It takes time.
Right.
To be you and interpret the subject matter in that reality. The subject matter being Spanish. It takes time for me to be able to speak as Gerry in Spanish. And it's interesting who I become.
Right. So the character is in a sense almost like learning a different language, trying on a different language. It's still you, but the experience of speaking these words from that have been given to you by this writer, with the intentions given to you by this sort of writer, and you taking ownership of that begins to shape your way of being in a way that is initially different, but until you begin to actually, I guess, embody and take ownership and start to feel like you in that new context. I don't know if I've overcomplicated that.
Well described. It's well described. I think one of the things to be aware of is that it's all in English.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm speaking that one language. So by using the analogy of the different language, I'm kind of looking at the voice, slightly different voice aspect to it. You don't know who that's going to be until until it starts to speak about you, to you, within you, and you become less self-conscious. It's less of a disguise and more of a sort of revealing aspect of yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
And your only care does it reveal that to me, really. So because that's essentially, you have nobody else to tell you whether you're in or out.
Right.
You know what I mean? So the revelation is, am I observing these things in me as I work through this? It's complex, and that's why I call it a ritual, because you leave the sense of being you in the world as the tribe, as a pack. You leave that, and you become, I suppose, it's slightly transcendental in a way, in that you transcend the elements that keep us chained to the culture as we understand it. But we can't just leave. It's not just downing a gallon of hooch and running around a campfire,
right,
to a drum beat. No, it's like we prepare ourselves for the journey, and on the journey we manipulate that. We manipulate our experience. We manipulate it, and it's all like really, really split second, because the neurology is operating really, really fast.
Right.
Even speaking, I've got a concept in my head which is like just chemistry. It's bioelectric activity that is just bleh. It's a snowstorm of stuff, that I am used to, and I convert that into language by going to, other parts of my brain, and then I send that information to here and to here, and then it comes out here, and then I tell my jaw and my lips and my tongue to do things that I've practiced so endlessly, and I'm really capable, to a certain extent. Some people are more capable than others, and it's fine.
Yep.
But that happens like that. But one thing happens first, then another thing happens after that, and then another thing happens after that, and then and then that goes out. And then the microphone picks it up, and your headphones give you that signal, and then it goes into your ear, and it's converted back into bioelectric signals in your brain.
Right.
Now, if I were to put electrodes on my brain and record the electrical activity that takes place when I'm conceiving an idea and wanting to convey that to you, and then play that back on your head, it would, but under no circumstances, be intelligible. Why? Because the neuronal activity is specific to my brain.
Right.
It's specific to my ontology. It's specific to who I am, and that would be philosophy. All the whole damn thing that's kind of, all of that stuff that's gone before that I'm now using to express myself. And equally for you, that's why I say don't listen to your scene partner, listen to what you're hearing, because you only hear what you're capable of hearing.
Right.
See, what you convert into your signals.
Yeah, it's all happening here. It's all happening with you.
All. And your audience want to see that. That's voyeurism.
That's voyeurism. I mean, that is a particularly useful idea for film acting in particular, given that the camera is right there.
Yes. I wouldn't dismiss theater. No. Because interesting, because in contemporary theater, we have fantastic lighting. We can microphone, on the bigger theaters, we use mics, so we can hear intimate voice. And the body language is more evident. The theaters are a little bit smaller, in the sense that, the audio is back here as well. And, in the really good theaters, it's almost like you're on the stage. I wouldn't dismiss employing that on theater as well. The difference is, it's a very wide lens, a very wide frame, very, very wide. So you don't have to worry too much about sort of the intimacy. When the camera gets in here, you can play with this. Because now I can see your eyes dilate.
Right. Yeah.
And that's now, if you do mirror work and you check in with yourself. Incidentally, doing mirror work, it runs its course, by the way. There's only so much you can do before it becomes intrusive. Before it loses its value.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like everything. It's like it loses its novelty. Why? Yeah. Because it's a tool to get you to a place where you can build strategies around your experience.
Yeah, it's sort of like not making the exercise or the trick, not kind of making it so important that you feel like if you don't do X, Y, and Z, then, I sometimes say to actors, like any process that you feel like you have to do in order to get up and earn the right to act is not a process at all. It's an impediment. Well, just the idea that any process that you have that you feel like you must do in order to feel like you've earned the right to act or to get up and to do your job is no process at all. It just becomes an impediment. The process, those tricks, those exercises are really just pointing you at something. They're not the thing. They're not the thing to kind of worship at the feet at, if you know what I mean.
And what I would suggest is that it change one of the words earn the right,
Mm-hmm.
own the right.
Own the right. Yep.
It's very different.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
Earning the right, that's nonsense. Earning the
Mm-hmm.
right to be human. What?
Yeah, well, that's it.
Own the right.
That's really well said.
Because now you have authority.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little more complex than this, but a simplified version of it is you have the script, which is the information. That's all it is. If I close the script, it means nothing. It means nothing to itself. You know, the relationship the script has with itself might as well be a roll of toilet paper. I don't mean it disparaging, but that's all. That's all it is. It only has meaning when we open it and read it.
Right.
So that's all. So then that becomes information becomes knowledge, and knowledge begets understanding through
Mm.
experience. Understanding begets ownership, and the journey to ownership, it becomes uh, authority over your knowledge. Authority is given to you through ownership and experience,
Mm.
and out of that authority comes authorship,
Mm.
and
Wow.
the authorship is what we bring. We write our story, just as Van Gogh did.
Mm-hmm.
Authorship. That's the journey that we go on. Um, our job as coaches is to help as best we can um, without thinking that we have, the formula. You know what I mean? Is to find ways to go. Okay, right. That yes, absolutely. That over there is an interesting thing, but what is it for you? And when we get close to what it is for you, we're then in a position to say, okay, now let's put this to the test. Let's just test it out. Take it for a drive and see what we think. Can we handle? Does it handle well? Am I under the impression that I'm doing well, or am I? How do I know that I'm actually doing well? Well, the feedback you get is the only thing you've got. So
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about feedback. What is feedback? It's interoception. What is interoception? Interoception is first person perspective. What is first person perspective? The relationship you have with yourself. Blah, blah, blah. And on down back to baby, you know.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So can you just expand on that back to baby in terms of that interception?
That's all the baby has is interoception.
Mm.
So the adult world helps the baby develop exteroception. Because it's dangerous if you stand in front of the bus and you go, no, it's just interoception. It's my imagination. You'll learn pretty fast that you are wrong.
That bus is going to intercept pretty fast.
That bus is going to hit you and hit you hard.
Yeah.
But that's what we learn. However, what happens in the course of that journey is that we lose the first person relationship.
Mm.
We lose the ownership and become owned.
Mm.
The imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that come from? That comes from not feeling like you have a right to be. When all we're interested in is who you are. Who are you?
Mm.
Who
Mm.
is this person?
Yeah.
And the closer you get to you, the more generous your performance. Because you're not trying to tell not trying to tell your scene partner what to do.
Mm-hmm. No.
You're letting your scene partner do their thing. And if they come up to snuff, great. If they don't, hey, I know what you're thinking anyway. As far as I'm concerned, you're thinking this.
Yeah.
And if I don't get any more information, if I don't hear anything different, then that's good. I'll just get on with what I understand. Right. And I'm still going to work from in here anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then back to baby. What I would say about that, there's a point in a child's development. We all go through it to some degree or another, and it's known as parallel play.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating, parallel play. My description of parallel play is when two kids get together at this particular phase in their development, and what they do is they get together, they agree on a theme, and then they play alone together.
They play alone together.
Yes, they play on their own together. They agree on the theme, and then they investigate the theme on their own. The interaction is with the self. So, Peter and Paul are on their own, and Peter goes over to Paul and goes, no, 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 no. But they are not interacting as though they're outside each other. They're interacting as though they're inside each other.
Oh,
because
wow.
the world exists because they do. Fast forward to two actors in a scene. How cool would that be if that was like parallel play? We agree on a theme, a little more complex, because the boundaries are a lot. They serve, the subject matter serves our maturity and our understanding of the world. Nonetheless, we're still investigating like a child would, but with a little more advanced experiences and opinions of the world. But you watch two children playing together like that,
Yeah.
and we would say they disappear. The child would say, no, you disappear. And guess what? That's what we're looking to achieve when we are the children in a parallel play scene.
It's like, as the actor, the outside world disappears for us, and for the audience, the actor disappears into the character.
I'd caution against thinking that that's how simple it is.
Okay.
Because it's down to by disappear for the actor. I mean, the world on a set, we all know what a set's like. It can be pretty intrusive sometimes. Very often. So how do you deal with that? What we're looking for is to be at ease with that and not rattled by it. In other words, our attention is not taken away from what we're doing. That's why eye lines are so important.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, it's because you see somebody looking at you that's not in the scene, and it's like, oh, God. It just suddenly disappears for you. The scene becomes dissonant. So what I'm really saying is, in the act of parallel play, let's say the analogy of parallel play, for the child, the observer, the adult, wondering at the child disappearing, what they've really done is the child owns the scene partner. They also own the adult watching. They own everything.
I love
so
that.
Nothing is intruding, you see. Everything belongs to the child. Now, what's really interesting is, let's say a kid, and you'll probably remember this yourself, or at least some of us will remember parallel play. And, oh, I'd love Johnny to come around and play mum. Yeah, okay, I'll get onto his mum. Oh, his dad is going to deliver him today. Oh, okay. Dad comes in. Hey, kid. Play. Go and play. Whatever it is, And then Johnny is telling you how to play. Guaranteed, Johnny never comes back for parallel. You never ask Johnny back. I'll get Ben back. He's cool. He's great at parallel play.
Right.
Why? Because he doesn't tell me how to think.
Right.
So Johnny's gone. Right? Casting, don't cast Johnny.
Yeah. There's a great lesson for directors in that too, about telling actors how to think.
Big time. The director is, a good director is not looking for what they want. They're looking for what they haven't noticed. They want to be surprised.
Right. Yeah.
They're looking for you. They don't know you until they see you. And when they see you, it's a job to try and say, do I really want that? Wow. And I'll print that, keep it. And we try this. They're not saying, stand there, do this, do that, look sad. Oh, God.
Right.
God forbid.
Well, and I'm just realizing too that, again, with an audition, for example, that's what they're looking to see, is they're looking to see you. But the only way they can really see you is if you have that ability to have that first person experience where you can see yourself. You can really be comfortable with revealing yourself.
Absolutely.
Given that you've worked with just some extraordinary actors in your time, I mean, again, your bio is the fact that you've worked with Marlon Brando and Meryl Streep and Bruce Willis, among others. Would you say that ownership, that authority, that artistry is the quality that those actors had or have? That's what has them be movie stars.
Yes, I would. I mean, just
That ownership.
in a thimbleful, yes. Because there's so much more to it.
Of course, yeah.
However, yeah, that's the key. Ability to be there, grounded. I mean, that's a really simple description. To have the authority over your existence, however fragile that might be. It's not necessarily like, oh, I'm strong. There's fragility, but it's the authority over the navigation of that fragility that's interesting. Confronting your fears, and knowing, no, this is it's a dark room. I can't see. It's okay. I'll navigate this. I'm okay. I've done this before. It's just a different subject matter.
Right.
But what I do know is I know it's me, and I know, and I can be in my sense of who I am. I can be present. I can recognize when I'm not present, and even if I am in a third person state, I'm accepting of it. It's such a trusting state. Trust. It's okay.
Yeah.
And the beauty of film is you get another crack at it anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
And don't worry, and try not to replicate the last one.
Yeah.
Some directors make the mistake. Oh, do that again. Yes, I love that. Okay. That's not possible.
Yeah.
Tear the page. I love the way you did that. Do that again. Could I have another page, please? It's a different page. It's not possible.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's so many different angles of time. What is time? Time doesn't exist. Time is nonsense. Time is something that we use to synchronize the world.
Yep.
Right? My dog doesn't know what time it is.
No.
It just knows when it's hungry, and it just knows when it needs to take a leak. That's it. And it doesn't like other dogs barking at it.
Yeah.
Dead simple stuff. But time, try getting your dog to read the clock. No, this is just ooh, it's like inches and centimeters. They don't exist.
Right. Except in language.
That's all we do, and language is the same. Language is like language doesn't exist.
Right. Yep.
Language is really clumsy.
Yeah.
Really clumsy, and it's not even remotely intimate. It has no emotions. I mean, words have no emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
We bring the emotion to it. I normally say, dialogue has no right to be in a scene. None. We give it the right. We stamp the passport. You're allowed in. Off you go. Oh, no, wait, not so fast.
Say more about that, the dialogue, that we give dialogue the right to be in the scene.
Well, number one, an easy one is the analogy Van Gogh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What did he give the night sky, or the starry night, the right to be? Gave it the right to be an interpretation of life. Gave it the right to be something that he discovered about himself when he was painting it. When he was painting it, it's like the actor as artist does a scene, and each take is a painting. Let's say,
yeah.
And like many artists, I don't like that painting. I'll do that again. Oh, I'll do that again. Oh, I didn't like that one either. It was okay. Oh, now I'm okay with this one, so I'll sign that. Yeah? And so
Yeah.
you don't worry about it. It's like trying to describe an experience.
Mm.
And it's easy to describe an experience on the surface of it. But it is in retrospect.
Right.
It's
Yep.
over. It's happened.
Yep.
It's the only true manifestation of time now.
This moment.
Think about it.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same moment in Sydney as it is in Dublin.
Isn't that extraordinary?
Exactly the same moment.
Mm.
And even if I'm on a rocket traveling at the speed of light, it's exactly the same moment.
Mm.
It's happening now. Even though we have time dilation as we understand it,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I'm at sea level and you're at, 10,000, meters above sea level, time moves differently
Yeah.
as we understand
Relativity.
it.
Yeah.
It's
Relativity.
relativity.
Yeah.
But now is exactly the same time moment. That's the only true manifestation of time. And when does that now happen?
Now.
Oh, it's gone. Oh,
Yeah.
no, there's again. There's another one. There's another one.
Yeah.
The past is happening. When I think about what happened yesterday, I think about it now.
Yeah. You're bringing it into the present.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And incidentally, it's different every time I think about it,
Absolutely.
which is the same for a scene.
Mm.
Yes, I may want to use my experience of what happened in the previous take to inform my next take, but I incorporate that into what I'm doing in the same way I would the concept work that I do
Mm.
in prep. So I extract my experience of that and allow that inform my readiness potential for the next take. I don't try to replicate it. I allow what happened in the last take inform me or further embellish what I understand of, or my opinion, shall we say, of what I've just done.
Right. Yeah.
That can only happen now. And now doesn't happen until it does happen. You see?
Yeah.
And the future never happens because when tomorrow comes, it's today.
Yeah.
So why would we bother trying to worry about how the scene ends? And that's complicated too, because we know how it ends. Because it's been written.
Yeah.
And again, why would it give an authority to the text? The text is only something for the first AD to figure out how long it's going to take to shoot this scene.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And the script is about dialogue, about the look, it's about the construction of the sets, it's about the makeup, it's about the hair, it's the costume, props, you name it. We're interested in an interpretation, and ultimately, all of those other departments are at their job is to get it all ready so that we can go there and parallel play
Mm.
in as truthful a manner as possible,
Mm.
interpreting what we understand of the scene.
Mm.
That begs lots of questions. Like, well, you better get on with reading about life. You better get on with understanding philosophy, or at least some, or getting interested in science, getting interested in politics, getting interested in blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. The world. Yeah.
Yeah, build a profile of the world,
Mm-hmm.
of your work,
Right.
so that you can own it. And authorship comes easy, because authorship is ultimately what you're doing every take.
Mm-hmm.
You're rewriting the themes. And the dialogue doesn't have a right to be there until you give it the right.
Mm.
So you'd better have an opinion of it.
Right. Yeah.
You know? So all of that, and it's interesting. All of that is what we do. don't forget the look, don't forget the audience, don't forget the director, don't forget all of that sort of stuff. That's when you're building the fridge.
Mm-hmm.
You know? That's like the IKEA, the IKEA
The instruction manual. Yeah.
yeah. But when you're building it, if all you're doing is following the instruction manual, you're going to build the most ridiculous set of drawers. You know what I mean? Because you've got to go, okay, right now, I've got to get that bit, right? Get that bit, and I put that there. There's a point where when you put it there, that you have to be present. I mean, it's simplicity itself, but it's in a way that's what we're doing. But if you go then to the furniture builder, now he's an artisan, but there's a certain element of artistry as well.
Mm.
And there's a point where, yes, I want to build this, but this is the wood I've got.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got to work with the fibers of that wood. I like the look of this. I choose that wood because it looks beautiful, or I look that because it makes a really good leg,
Right.
because I know it's sturdy. So I do make all of those decisions about the material I'm going to use.
Mm.
And then I build, a table.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that table serves it's a beautiful table.
Mm.
And there's part of me in it.
Yes.
And I might just put a little mark on it that identifies me. Like I live in a really old house, and I've come across things that the builders left in the building, in the brick.
Wow.
When there was renovations being done, little markers that said, I was here.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, it's just, you go to some of those beautiful cave paintings,
Mm.
and it's a hand.
Yeah.
How amazing is that?
Isn't
I
that
am transported.
extraordinary?
Like that, I'm transported.
Mm.
I am feeling something. I'm feeling an affinity with that person who didn't do it because she or he wanted me to see it.
Mm-hmm.
They did it because they wanted to prove to themselves that they were real.
Yeah.
And they mattered.
They were here.
They were here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And instantly, there is no time gap.
Mm.
I'm instantly now. I'm in there now.
Yeah.
There's no separation.
Isn't that extraordinary?
Yeah. So I'm not actually. I'm giving the text the right to be spoken,
Mm-hmm.
because I've discovered what it means to me.
Mm. Oh gosh, yes. Oh,
That's
I love
all
that.
that.
Yeah. What it means to me.
Yeah. And nobody wants to know what it means to anybody else.
No.
Oh, exactly. The audience, the observer,
Yeah.
then does the same thing because you're not telling them what to think.
That's it.
That's what the audience wants. They go, oh my God. So I don't know what I don't know what it was about that picture, but I loved what Ben did. I loved how he Jerry was a bit of a turkey, but Ben was fucking.
Yeah, that's right.
No idea what it is, and the people you went to cinema with go, yeah, I loved that moment.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The magic is there,
Yeah.
and they're the people that get recognized in the end.
I mean, look, I could talk about this with you all day and all night, Gerry. I just had one more question that I guess we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'm just so curious to know then what your take is on character, how you define or see character. I know you kind of have spoken to the idea that, in a sense, character is revealed through the actor, through you.
Yes.
And certainly, some of the people that you've worked with have done some extraordinary jobs of bringing a quote unquote character to life that is quite physically or vocally or psychologically different to them. How do you see character?
Character is you. You can't be someone you're not.
Right.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
I can't be you, and nor can you be me, and ever be.
Ever. Yeah.
So we're looking to, and again, voice as well is a really important part of it, because you recognize when you know interoceptively when you're speaking truthfully. You know when your voice is not affected. We do a fun thing, not all the time, but one of the things that we do for fun is karaoke. And in karaoke, everybody sings a song same way as the original artist. Same accent, everything. It's fascinating when they sing it with their own voice and their own accent. It's really different. So you remove the mask. There's nothing wrong with the mask at all. It's fun. And there is stuff to learn from it. But only so far as it informs us further about who we are. That's really the only reason you would use imitation. It is to help us find a path to us. And then, the comparison or analogy between learning a language is not much different. It's a little bit like, also another thing I would say, like, you're really great at swimming, and so I'd expect you to be, being an Aussie. I'd imagine you're pretty good swimmer.
Yeah.
You might not be good at tennis, but your upper arm strength is definitely tennis capable. So then you think, okay, I'm gonna take on tennis. So you go off and you start learning, and the ball is going out of the court. It's like, it's like so goofy. It's just not real. A couple of months in, or not even that, a couple of weeks in, the musculature is available. It's just you haven't ever used them in that, in that order or in that orientation. But your eye-hand coordination is getting better and better, and now you're slamming that ball. You're getting really good at tennis. See, so now you're a good tennis player and a good swimmer. When you start reading a character, you're doing the same thing. You're just imagining yourself as a tennis player.
Right.
And then you go about, and that, there's such a thing called mirror neurons.
Yep.
That mirror activities, and those mirror neurons, that's all you're doing. You're using mirror neurons to imagine yourself, hammering that ball, whacking that ball. And then you get up there and eventually you do. The further away from the mirror neurons you get, the closer you get to you actually doing it.
Right.
Also, it's really interesting because let's say you're investigating someone who exists or has existed, and we've got footage of, and there's detailed visual material available, and they have certain affectations.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're going, so what do you do with that? Well, the last thing you want to do is to imitate them.
Yeah.
So what you do but imitation's okay. We imitate in order to interpret.
To find the truth. Yeah.
To find our understanding of it.
Yeah.
So maybe the person you're looking at does something like this, so they're doing something like this, and then sometimes they do something like this or this,
Yeah.
So now you go, okay, well, let me see. No, it's just
try playing with my glasses. Yeah.
Kind of works. That kind of fits me. And this thing, yeah, maybe. Yeah. Oh, I catch myself doing, which hand am I? Okay, it doesn't. Oh shit! This really doesn't work for me. It's interesting.
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're looking to see what habits the person you are investigating match habits that fit for you. So you're doing things that are habitual or qualitatively close to habit, so that you can coordinate the habit. Now you're in a scene. Last thing you want to do is to do this. Right?
Constantly, yeah. Right. Moving between each of them. Yeah.
So now, if you've allowed it to be a habit or developed a habit, the readiness potential will incorporate and include the habit, and you will consciously go, oh, okay, I can do that. And now you're into what I call emotional rhythm.
Say more about that.
Emotional rhythm is when you're in the scene. One, your rehearsal, let's say, you're observing an emotional rhythm. The text, you've got the text. And, the choreography is straightforward. It's just trajectory. You're walking through space, for goodness sake. And if you're doing a good job of it, you're walking through your own space. Why would you care about, knocking something over or whatever?
Right. Yeah.
Lift the cup, lift the bloody cup. It's yours.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So the ownership extends beyond that.
Taking full ownership of the space.
Yes, ownership of the space and ownership of your activity as well. So then you go to take one and you recognize, oh, there's something familiar about the emotional rhythm here. Now, where is that emotional rhythm being felt? It's being felt in here. It's you're feeling it. And then you do another take. And there's something, as an element of consistency, emotional consistency, unfolding. You're not trying to reissue the emotion. It's simply happening. And now it's turning into emotional rhythm of continuity. And that's very interesting, because now you're creating something that has shape and form, right? Out of what essentially was nothing.
Right. Yes.
And this is the creative process. Something out of nothing.
That's exactly it. Creating out of nothing. Because when you're coming from nothing, you can create anything.
And you can do whatever you like. But the more experience you get, the more you'll do what you like. Because the feedback loop is tighter.
Right.
It's closer and closer to now. When you're starting out with that, it's kind of, there's a gap, and there's a slight delay, and that's fine, that's okay. And you know what? If it's not working for you, or you feel a little bit like, oh, I'm not in control of this, okay, forget about it. Fake it, or just pretend or play. No, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's when we start judging ourselves, and we start going, the imposter thing coming in. Then you're back to, the school, 100 possible failures and 1 possible success. You're fucked.
Amen.
You've got 100 possible batons to beat yourself with. Tap, 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 tap. Then the eyebrows go crazy. Oh, you're trying to express even more. Oh my God.
Yeah.
The shoulders come up, or hands are waving.
Because you're then trying to show to that. Again, you're worried about that. You have in that third person experience again, worried about what they think.
Yes, but also, it's a bit more refined than that, or nuanced than that, because what you're also doing is you're proving to yourself you're doing a good job.
Right.
I'm working harder, therefore I'm doing a good job.
Yeah.
Can't they see I'm really busting my ass here?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really feeling it. Yeah.
So I'm putting more in.
Yeah. That's right.
Your cup is full, my friend.
Yeah. Trust that.
Now it's just spilling over.
Yeah. No more. Just trust that cup.
Yeah. So go back to manageable.
I do love that idea of what you just said, that the feedback loop gets smaller and smaller the more experienced you become. You tightens up. You can begin to. It just happens in the moment. When you're in it, when you're not, or close to.
Yeah. And incidentally, it happens in your moment, not
In
anybody
your
else.
moment. So well said, Gerry.
Time is really interesting because you're reacting or responding, which is different, responding to what you hear after it's happened. But we agreed that it's happening here in the middle, it's happening now.
Right.
It's not. It's happening. You're living in the past if it's here, but you're responding in your present. And I'm responding in my present. What we have to do is trust that what the observer sees is the middle. Okay, so you get my present, your present, and the observer's present.
Wow.
See? So this little triangle.
And what they're experiencing, we trust, is in the middle of what you and I are experiencing. Yeah.
You can't trust it anywhere else.
Yeah.
And you can't go into the middle because it's over.
Yeah.
It's already happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
See? So now is very important. But you're now. That's it. Not anybody else's.
And that comes back again to that notion of ownership, that I'm owning this moment because it's only my moment. Yeah.
And that's why you don't listen to your scene partner. Listen to what you're hearing, man. Listen to what you're hearing.
Yeah.
Because you can't hear what your scene partner is saying. You only hear what you're receiving.
And so just quickly, would you say that then when you're reading a script and you're doing all of that preparatory work, what was the term you used for that exploration before performance?
Oh, concept.
The
Concept work.
Yeah, concept work. I guess when you're, and that potential, you're creating that potential.
Readiness potential, yeah.
Your readiness potential. In many respects, you are absorbing that information to turn it into knowledge, to turn it into understanding, so that in a sense, when you are in the moment, you are hearing through that filter of what you know is important to this character that you're portraying. You've sort of created that filter.
On the proviso that you're not actually looking out for what matters to you. You're on the lookout for what matters to you. You're now outside of yourself.
I see. Yeah.
If it means something to you, you'll hear it.
It's already just in there because you've taken ownership of it.
It belongs to you. It's just more material for you to have authority over. It's just more material. That's it. And if a director says, nuances, gives you a little bit of a direction, whatever, and it's a decent direction, most directors, worth their salt, know that.
Yeah.
They just don't understand actors. If you're on the lookout for something, then you're already in advance of yourself.
I see.
It's very easy. Careful that you're not trying to chase something, or that the old expression that you find something you're looking for. Because
Right.
if you go looking for something, you might miss something really interesting.
Absolutely. You just trust it.
Well, trust comes from authority, because you have to exercise authority over what you're doing. And with that authority, it gives way to authorship. But authorship only takes place now, in the moment, when it's happening. But the business of authorship takes a lot of prep, takes a lot of work, takes a lot of thinking and understanding who you are and your relationship with it and so on. And how you develop that relationship is through concept work, because the first read of a script is when you start laying down the foundations for more and more and more and more detail.
Right.
Second time you read it, you might notice something you haven't seen before. Third time, there's a detail. Oh, she says that. Oh, wow. Why would she say that? That's interesting. Anyway, on we go. 20 reads, 30 reads. You're beginning now to go into the overall. Now you're bringing the triangle up to here. You're now developing your opinion of the piece. In other words, the writer has relinquished control over the script and allows you now to take absolute control over it. Absolute control. You speak to the director asks you to think about it in this way or that way. What you don't do is just try to make that happen. What you do is you go, oh, that makes sense. That's interesting. It becomes part of your concept.
Part of your concept.
Absolutely.
So you then take ownership over that direction as well.
100%.
It becomes part of your material. So again, you're not trying to please the director. You're like, that's a good idea that I like.
Yeah. And it means something to me. Off I go. If it doesn't, could you say that again? You know, and if the director says it again, but is still sort of, you know, missing the target, it's okay, yeah, right, great. There's a pretty good chance the director doesn't know what they're looking for.
Right. Yep.
They're just hoping that what they're saying will bring something to life for them. And you know what it is they're really looking for is you. And it's a surprise when they see you. You know, because it really is a surprise. It's fascinating. We're only interested in seeing you experience you.
Yeah.
That's all we want. And all the other stuff around it dresses it, you know, it's dressed. That's fine. It's great. The missing link is what's not in the script.
No writer can write a character that is as interesting or as nuanced or as specific as who you are.
Impossible. Impossible. Why? Because consciousness, we don't know. We can't explain it. If you're conscious, what are you conscious of? Our job is to be conscious of the moment, of my artistic opinion, my interpretation of the subject material. Building that skill, you build that skill.
What about when an actor doesn't have a lot of time with a script? Like if they get, you know, an audition that's in a day or two, or you are working on set and all of a sudden you're handed new pages. I mean, obviously, usually by that stage you have a pretty good understanding of the character anyway. But I guess it's just, again, about like finding you even when you don't have a lot of time in that material.
Yes, knowing confidently that if you're there, whatever is in the script will sound better. And if you want, you know, it's not unusual to fear not remembering your text, not remembering your lines. That's very common. You know, if you have a little bit of work to do on that, get yourself a bunch of scenes, simple scenes, preferably ones you haven't seen before, you haven't seen a movie, or you don't know. Simple scenes. Start off easy, and just read the scene 20 times, and then put the camera up or your phone up, press the red button, and off you go. That's all you do. It's real simple.
Yeah.
Simple. The simple act of pressing that red button freaks most people out.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. So now your job is, how do I stop freaking out because I pressed the red button? Number one, you can edit the bit for you entering into the scene. Action means no. Action means no. No. You know? And the last thing you want to do is go, action.
Right. And freak out.
React.
Yeah.
That's reaction.
That's right. Yeah.
Action means no. Now I'm ready. So there's more of you, less of the fear of fucking up.
So it's just explain that to me. Action means no.
I'm going to ask you to scratch your nose when I say action. Now, when I say action, that's what I want you to do. Action. Okay. Now I want you to say no.
Okay.
Not out loud, but to yourself. Say no. I'm doing it when I'm ready. Action. And when you look at that, when you look back at that, it's different.
Yes,
So
it
much more
is.
interesting.
Yes, it
You
is.
kind of gave up a little bit at the end, but that's okay.
I gave up
It
a
was
little
fascinating.
bit.
Just at the end of the scratch.
I gave up scratching a little bit.
No, you gave up. You gave up saying no. You kind of. It was like,
Ah,
okay, job done. It was a bit of,
ah,
I'm done. I
oh,
did
I
it.
see. I see.
Left the moment
Yes,
slightly. Fine.
right. I got it.
That happens when you're in a scene also. You know,
Mm.
you're near the end of the scene or near the end of your line, and it's like, oh, I'm done. No, you're not.
No,
You
that's
still got to
exactly
finish
right.
it down.
Yeah,
You got to
exactly.
finish it down the line.
Yeah.
You
That
know,
character hasn't ceased to exist just because the scene's over.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I
So
love
action
that.
means no allows you to go when you're good and ready, right?
Mm.
And now there's more room for surprise
Right, right.
because you're not trying to follow an instruction.
Yes, and I could feel the tension that came from saying no, which is interesting to watch.
That's also your feedback loop, the interoception. You're
Mm.
perceiving yourself in the business of scratching your nose.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that gives you'll never scratch it the same way twice.
Right. Yeah.
Your audience will write their own story on it because you're not telling them what to do. And you're not following instruction. Therefore, you're scratching your nose when you're good and ready.
Boy, that's powerful. That
Doing it for your audience.
right.
You'll see it when you look at it.
Yeah, that is taking total ownership over that moment. Oh, I love that, Gerry. That's a wonderful trick.
Good trick.
It's a good trick.
They're all coming from the same place, though, you see.
Yeah. Yeah.
All, you know, you examine what we've spoken about, they're all leading into that, leaning into that space.
Pointing in the same direction. Well, look, Gerry, I've kept you so long, and I could talk to you about this all day and all night, as I said, but I cannot thank you enough for how generous you've been with your time. And I have loved every second of this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. And I, same here as well. You made it easy.
Thank you. Thank you, Gerry. We're very excited to host you online in the new year. I honestly can't wait for that workshop.
That'll be fun.
It will be fun. And I know for people who are in Ireland who are keen to learn from you and study your approach, they can do so at Bow Street Academy.
They can do, yes, absolutely. Bow Street, the academy itself is more of an experiment, but convention convention demands that you give it a title. So it's an academy, but it's just an experiment. Just playing around.
How long has Bow Street been around for now?
In our 10th year now, Bow Street, and then before that, it was we called it the factory because it was in an old factory.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a thing where people who were at the factory like to keep it as factory.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. It's a nostalgia attached to it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, I hope we can at some stage lure you to Australia. We would be delighted to host you in
It is.
person.
I love the Australian culture. I like that. I love it. And I think there is. You can't but be affected by the indigenous population and their traditions and their culture. It's extraordinary,
It is extraordinary.
extraordinary that panpsychism that those guys and gals kind of, and they are just extraordinary.
The history and the culture of this continent is unlike anything. It's incredible.
It's extraordinary. Yeah, it's
Mm,
so human.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, one of
So,
these days.
okay, good. Good. Well, Gerry Grennell, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure. And talk to you again, hopefully.
Talk to you again